Oh my god, did you see her sprite blink?
I didn't.
I didn't know they did that.
That's awesome.
If you leave them around for long enough, they'll start blinking at you. Oh, see,
yeah.
there it goes. Oh my god.
Wow.
Joe, this is crazy. I can blink. Holy crap, have I been able to do this all the time? I've never noticed.
Holy shit, that's fucked up. I thought we were 2D sprites that were immobile.
Yeah, me too.
Just...
Oh god.
Oh.
I just achieved sentience. And sapience soon after. You'll never get out.
We made it out of Jenner twice. Don't underestimate what we can do.
No, but you're biting off more than we can chew. Nephthys doesn't leave secrets where you can find them. I agree, it's dangerous and unnecessary.
It is not unnecessary. Nephthys isn't just after money.
How do you know that? So far, everything they've done is consistent with maximizing profit.
I know Francis. He isn't just a greedy businessman. He thinks he's a visionary. We have to know what his vision entails.
Then let's kidnap Francis and ask him. I'm not letting you go into the gardens, period.
You don't decide that.
You can't make that call by yourself either.
And why not?
Because you risk all of us.
That's why I'm going alone.
It would still jeopardize us. What if they question you or torture you?
You don't trust me?
No offense, but no one knows how they would behave under torture. It's not something we can count on.
But I have to know. Nephthys is up to something, I'm sure of it.
I believe you, but we have to find another way to get that intel.
Do you all feel this way? Bob? Amy? You're as brave as they come, but this is too much. Bank robbers don't walk into police stations.
Yes, they do when I'm done with them.
Sorry, Josephine. Jenner was a risk we had to take to survive. This isn't. Well, it does seem you have me outnumbered.
It does. For what it's worth, I believe you're right, Joe. But I can't lose you to needless risk-taking. We'll find another way, I promise you. It might take a while, but whatever that smug prick is planning, we will figure it out. Ronnie took Josephine's hand.
Okay, you're right. Breaking in would be suicidal and stupid as hell, I guess. I guess I'm still shaken up about what happened today.
And about being suddenly able to blink.
Yeah, that's pretty messed up too.
I'm pretty sure you've been blinking all this time and you just haven't noticed it until now.
I'm not sure if that's reassuring or more fucked up.
Little column A, little column B.
Anyway, I promise you I'll think of a way to hit Francis that's less risky.
And we promise to follow you when you do, no matter how dangerous it gets.
So, is my demonstration plan still going forward? Yes, but none of us will be there. It's too risky. Nephthys is guaranteed to film and identify everyone who shows up. So I have to organize a demonstration without being there. You guys just made excellent points about not taking risks. Can you pull it off? Manage from a distance? I'll do my best.
It just mirrors Amy's head slightly bigger than everyone else's.
The eyes and head, yeah.
Yeah, it's like... For the next few weeks, they waited. The conversation sparked by the bombing and the riot at the Nephthys stand grew by the day. The news found plenty of horror stories about families struggling to pay their water bills, and people ate it up. Katerina wasn't the last copycat criminal. Around downtown, groups of usually young street kids began breaking water pipes and selling the water. But the tide had turned against sabotage. After the bombings, politicians up for re-election began loudly campaigning for the restoration of law and order. The security industry was only too happy to oblige. Regular drone surveillance and patrols with armored cars quickly ended the phenomenon of breaching water pipes. Perhaps it was better that way. At least one man fell to his death while climbing a high-running pipe. His fate reminded Josephine of how close she had come to perishing the same way. Afterward, a far safer and more fashionable crime emerged, collecting rainwater as visibly as possible. Someone had been circulating guides on how to build contraptions to gather rain from household supplies and duct tape. That someone was, of course, Josephine, with the help of Amy's contacts. Drawing the guidebook was soothing. For hours at a time, Josephine didn't have to think about either Jimmy or Francis. Instead, she could chuckle at upper-middle-class social media stars showing off the water contraptions they didn't actually need. Those who took the side of Nepthys were equally quick to let everyone know that they stood with Jimmy. Then, 2 weeks into the protests, Esther Heading died. Esther Heading was an elderly woman who attempted to rob a water shop with a toy gun in order to help her grandkids. The security gunned her down. In Esther, the growing water protests had found a martyr almost as sympathetic as Jimmy. The poor boy was still in the hospital, and not a day went by without a visit from some business mogul or member of the town council. With a camera in tow, of course. For a while, Jimmy was the face of the so-called innocent victims of anarchy, organized crime, and domestic terrorism. Then someone discovered that none of the benefactors barging in for a photo op had offered to cover Jimmy's medical costs, or assist the family in any way. That someone, of course, being Amy. Frances rushed to fix the issue, personally presenting the boy with a check. But the damage had been done. Esther Heading and the financial troubles of little Jimmy made it clear that Big Water was not interested in saving lives. The protests, usually at local water shops, steadily became bigger, and people got hurt. All the while, Josephine lay on her bed and carefully peeked out the window. Every dog walker passing by could have been a Nepthys agent. Then again, it was possible Nepthys hadn't made the connection between her and the bombings at all. Not knowing how much her enemies knew was without a doubt the worst part of fugitive life. The second worst part was not knowing what they were planning. She was about as safe as she could be, but she tried to make herself believe. Ronnie had set alarms at all entrances to the house, and they kept a regular watch. Nevertheless, Josephine woke up, ready to grab a gun whenever a car drove by. Every night she had the same nightmare. In it, Francis went by his day, cracking his jokes at meetings, giving interviews, having lunches with investors and dinners with attractive women. Utterly unaffected by anything Josephine had done or could do. It drove her crazy. She would wake up for her shift discovering that she'd scratched herself in her sleep. And it was every night. Josephine sighed deeply and relished the smell of black coffee.
Black coffee with relish.
Yeah! Whoa! Shit, we let Kyoko make the coffee again. It was morning again, though the days spent inside the house became harder and harder to separate. Every day was more or less identical, just like the days at the hospital. What's up, Joe? Didn't sleep well?
No, just lost in thought. I'm starting to have enough of this vacation.
My advice is to enjoy it while it lasts. After Amy gets that demonstration of hers going, we'll have our hands full eventually.
But it doesn't give the same satisfaction as actually getting your hands dirty.
You used to have a white-collar job.
I know. It's weird that I don't miss it. Regular hours, nice pay.
Not being on anyone's hit list?
I don't mind that. I mean, the constant danger is a bit exhausting, but at least someone is afraid of us, you know?
Making enemies means you stood up for something? I get it. I'd still rather retire on a farm and never get shot at again.
Really? I didn't take you for someone who'd want to settle down.
I'm full of surprises. Can I join you for breakfast?
Please do. I've sat alone for quite long enough.
As usual, Josephine had taken the last shift of the night, waking up hours before the others. She was now having her third cup of coffee.
Relatable. I'll give it to Amy's folks. They have good taste in coffee.
They have good taste in everything. Even their towels are perfect. I wonder what Amy's parents do.
Whatever it is, they make a ton of money doing it. You mean rich girls, folks? They're investors or something such. Morning, Bob. Sleep well? Always do.
Yeah, not surprising. Just like you always snore. Loud.
At least I don't talk in my sleep.
Hey now.
Alright, that's enough morning grumpiness. There's coffee on the machine. Help yourselves.
Thanks. Thanks, Joe. Though. Sorry, I've never been a morning person.
I've never even met a morning person. Until the dark, of course.
The others laughed. Bob was right. If there ever was an undisputed early bird, it was Norbert. Every morning, usually before anyone else, Norbert got up, whistled in the shower, and made coffee for everyone.
Oh yeah, where is Norbert? Is he asleep?
No, only Amy's still sleeping.
Should we be worried? Maybe he just wanted some time for himself. He could be in the yard or upstairs.
It's not like him to disappear like that. Can you call him?
Sure, let me just...
She was interrupted mid-sentence by a shrieking noise. That's the front door alarm.
Oh no. Do you think they have Norbert?
They'll be at the door soon. Get to cover, I'll get my gun. And then the doorbell rang. The three of them dropped to the floor. There was no way of knowing when someone would begin shooting through the walls. Ronnie had somehow conjured up a kitchen knife. The doorbell rang again.
What do we do?
If we just don't answer, they might go away.
But then we'll never know who it was.
Who exactly do you think it is? We can't take any risks here.
It might just be the neighbors or preachers.
Well, we don't have time to talk about our Lord and Savior right now.
We should open the door.
It's too risky.
If it's them, we can fight them and then get out before the next ones come. If it's someone else, we can breathe easy knowing that this place is still secure. Not knowing is the worst option.
The doorbell rang again. Fuck, alright, I guess you have a point.
What's all the noise about? Can't you guys keep it down?
Amy had appeared from the bedroom, hair askew. She was obviously still half asleep.
No, but you should get down.
It took a second for Amy to understand what was going on. She dove to the floor.
Crap, what do we do? We have to see who it is. Does that mean...
It means you have to open the door.
But they could shoot me through the door.
Keep to one side and ready to use this. Ronnie handed her a pistol.
Wait, did you stash a gun in my kitchen?
Now is not the time. I have guns stashed everywhere. Check your jacket pocket right now.
There's a gun.
The doorbell rang again. I figured having some guns within reach might come in handy. Why?
Guns? As in plural? How many weapons have you hidden in here without asking me?
Just a few. Most of them are small. The doorbell rang again.
Fuck it, I'll go. Be ready to save my ass.
And she crawled to the door, gripping the gun tightly. Once there, she got up just enough to reach the lock. She pressed her thumb into the fingerprint lock, breathing nervously. Josephine reached up to the stove for a frying pan. The door opened. Amy peeked through the crack and instantly hid the gun behind her.
Mom, Dad, good to see you. Come on in.
Ha 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 ha! It's a matter of time, huh? Amy opened the door wide and conjured an apologetic smile that stretched from ear to ear.
I'm sorry I didn't tell you, but I invited some friends from uni over. Everyone, meet my parents.
The three of them had scrambled to their feet as fast as they could.
Mr. and Mrs. Sierra, nice to meet you. You have a lovely house.
Mr. Sierra was a tall man, maybe in his 60s, in a neat suit with a commanding air. Mrs. Sierra was a little bit shorter. Her $1 million earrings couldn't outshine her hospitable smile, though they did her best.
Amy, what have I told you about hosting parties without my permission? That I am to make sure your office is locked, freely use your credit card for food, and make liberal, but not too liberal, use of the wine cellar? Exactly. Good girl. Now come here and hug your old man.
Aww. I mean, as far as far as it goes, aww. Carefully, Amy hugged her father with one arm, holding the gun behind her back with the other. Josephine rushed to the door and offered her right hand while quietly snatching the gun with her left. She slid it into the back of her pants and shook hands with the couple.
My name is Joe. I'm a friend of Amy's from Students United Against Depression.
Both of the Sierras shook her hand firmly.
I'm glad to see Amy has made so many friends. What was that organization again? Students United Against Depression is the activist group that I'm the vice chairperson in. I told you about it.
Did she get the name right?
Yeah.
Oh, she did, okay. Mr. Sierra looked confused for a few moments. It's those radicals that march in the street and shout obscenities.
Ah, yes, your hobby. Sorry, dear, I've had a long flight. Are you all from this group?
Yeah, we are. We're planning the next issue of our magazine and had a meeting yesterday. I trust you're both avid readers of Amy's writing. Mrs. Sierra smiled again, still hospitably, but suddenly she didn't seem so friendly anymore. But of course we are. We couldn't be prouder of our little journalist. Based on her tone, it was obvious that neither of them had read nor planned to read any of it. She turned her attention to Bob, who was looking very uncomfortable. And you are?
Bob Lawson, likewise from the feminist organization. Bob is my gender studies study partner. He's very progressive. Yes, I am progressive.
Bob is trying his hardest. Give him a... Aren't you a little old for college?
You see, I had kids very young and didn't finish my degree. Now the kids have left the nest, so I picked up where I left off.
How old are your children then?
Fiona is 22 and Camilla is 18. They're both in law school. You must be very proud of them. Our law school is one of the most exclusive in the world. I'm afraid they moved out of town. Didn't want to go to school with their old man, I guess.
Damn it, Bob, you talked yourself into a contradiction. Objection, Your Honor. Who do we have here? Sometime during the confusion, Norbert had appeared downstairs.
Norbert, meet my parents. They've come on a surprise visit.
We were looking for you. Where were you curing your hangover somewhere? I haven't seen you since the party. Yes, indeed. I had a bit too much wine yesterday, I think. Mr. Sierra laughed and shook Norbert's hand.
Occupational hazard of many students, I'm sure. Say, we just came to pick up some things, but why don't we all have breakfast together?
A splendid idea! The others followed her into the kitchen. Josephine grabbed Norbert by the sleeve and whispered to him.
Where were you? We were worried.
Out on the balcony. I'm sorry, I just need some fresh air.
We have to get rid of them fast. I don't think Bob can act like a college student for very long.
Before following, she slipped the pistol into the pocket of her coat.
Are they gonna start cooking and just find guns?
Just guns in every drawer. Let us cook for you and find weapons.
I opened the vegetable crisper and there were guns in it, and then I went and reached for the salt and it was a gun.
It's like that one SCP, but instead of bees, everything is gun. And no, they're just gonna sit down and have a normal-ass breakfast, huh? The breakfast that followed was among the strangest in Josephine's life. Ronnie made croissants and coffee. Amy suddenly laughed at everything and couldn't keep her hands still. Bob, not knowing what to do, chose to really lean into his incredibly poor performance of a gender studies student.
So, Mr. Sierra, raising daughters to be great feminists is so hard, is it not? Oh, Amy was an easy one. She basically raised herself.
Ha ha! Subtext. Amy's mom bit her lip in a manner that disagreed. Bob didn't seem to notice.
I would have been in trouble if my wife wasn't such a strong woman. That's why I began taking the gender science classes.
We discovered the gender fluid. I could make some for you right now. Bam, gender and Ronnie bit her own lip to keep from laughing. I mean, to be fair, Bob's been putting in the work to get himself educated. I don't think we should belittle that. He understands where his shortcomings are, and he's working on improving. I think,
and he grasps the basics of gender science.
He can successfully create the gender fluid. Amy's father was nice enough. He cracked jokes and didn't ask too many questions. It was obvious he knew next to nothing about his daughter's life. Mrs. Sierra was none of those things. She knew or wanted to know everything, and the only person she seemed to like was Norbert. So, Norbert, how do you like med school? It's a lot of work, ma'am. I barely have time for anything else. If that's true, then how did you and Amy meet? Meet? We met through our meetings at the organization.
Norbert and I are very good friends.
Well then, why haven't you introduced this very handsome young man to us before? Because you haven't been home, Mom.
Well, you've been away a lot. I haven't had the chance. We're always glad to meet your friends. What about you two? What are you studying? I study engineering. 1 more year to go.
And where do you plan to work after you graduate?
At Nephthys, probably. They're expanding fast. I'm sure they're hiring. Working for the biggest is always a good bet. I own some shares. I could get you an interview there.
Is that... Edelgard hearing the word crest face.
Gun slowly removed from coat pocket. You own shares of Nephthys?
I love how her eyes went wide for that, too. It was perfect.
Not a lot, just 6% or something, but I know their CEO, and I tell you, Francis Brabeck is going places. That man has a vision.
What is that vision? Tell us about that vision in painstaking detail.
So I've heard. Not to brag, but I know for sure that their stocks are only going up in the near future, no matter the bad PR.
I feel terrible for that man. To think he has to run a company and fight terrorists. I worry about the capabilities of the police force here.
Did you read about that little boy? So awful. I wish people learned to speak their minds without violence.
Joe's like, I know what you're doing, but how? I, for one, think you young people should work more and worry less about expressing yourselves.
Mom, activism takes a lot of work. Did you know that...
Josephine couldn't believe it. There was a Nephthys shareholder sitting right there, and this one was a very nice man. He was Amy's dad. Then again, Francis had been really nice too, right up until he wasn't. And who owned 6% of Nephthys and claimed it wasn't much? Amy's dad was at least a multi-millionaire. Aside from that one morning meeting at the top of the gardens, this was definitely the richest company she'd ever been in. Suddenly, she felt very hot and uncomfortable. She opened a button on her Don't do it! You're gonna show off your heart! Mr. Sierra snapped her back into the conversation.
What about you, Ronnie? What do you do?
I'm in security. International.
She studies international relations and is writing her master's on the privatization of military operations globally.
Ronnie nodded gratefully.
A fascinating topic. Perhaps Amy can send me your study once it's completed.
Sure she can. What about you two? What do you do?
Nothing nearly as interesting. As I said, I'm a businessman. I spend my days looking at shares and stock prices and currency values.
Well, all that looking seems to be paying off.
Yes, we've been fortunate. It's a good time to be a shareholder in almost any large company. The economy has improved in the past 2 years.
My goodness, what is that? Mrs. Sierra gasped and pointed at Josephine's chest. Told you! I swear, reading Ryokishio 7, Vienz has made me hyper aware of all of the tiny things happening in text now, and I can't turn it off.
Yep.
I can't stop it.
It's nothing to worry about. I was born with a weak heart, so the doctors recommended a cybernetic enhancement. It decreases the risk of a heart attack.
But couldn't they have done it in a less obvious way? That thing is grotesque. Josephine resisted the urge to punch the old woman in the face. I'm afraid that's just not how cybernetics work. They have to be bright and colorful and cheerful. There's no... Devices as powerful as hers are impossible to conceal entirely. And they're becoming more and more common. I would know. Watch me flex my arm at you. He waved his robot arm. Mrs. Sierra ignored him and continued talking to Josephine. Oh, this is how this goes to shit, huh?
I like how for the entire game, Norbert has had his one arm up and anxiously playing with his hair or whatever.
It's not my fault that
the entire game.
Listen, it's not my fault that A, I get nervous very easily, and B, I only have one sprite. Poor thing, that must really hurt your dating life. Amy buried her face in her hands. Josephine mustered a smile.
Actually, it's a pretty good icebreaker to tell people that my heart is unbreakable.
There was some nervous laughter. Josephine smiled her politest smile.
But you never told us what you do, Ms. Sierra. How do you fit your work with your husband's busy schedule?
My husband supports me. My passion is gardening. I've written a book on the maintenance of figs.
It's good to have a hobby. You know what they say on the news. The most dangerous part of being unemployed is lacking routines.
Ronnie spat out her juice. Excuse me. Mrs. Sierra's smile had vanished. I didn't say I was unemployed, my dear, just that my husband supports me. Josephine shrugged.
I didn't mean any offense. Don't we all work in the hope that one day we won't have to? In a way, isn't unemployment the goal?
This did not soothe Mrs. Sierra one bit. I will have you know that my book was very well received in the botanical community. Clearly the situation was getting out of hand. Josephine realized that she'd lost her temper.
I apologize. You've raised a child and written a book. I'm sure that's a lot of work. Damn right. Back in the gender science class, we called that emotional labor.
See, Bob is doing the best out of anyone here.
Do we, Bob? I believe Bob means unpaid work.
Well, he's trying anyway.
Darling, should we let the kids get back to their meeting? I'm sure they have many important things to discuss.
Mrs. Sierra gave Josephine one last spiteful look. Yes, let's go. We have a plane to catch. The group escorted the couple to the door. Amy's father whispered something to her before leaving. As Mrs. Sierra was putting on a fur coat, she bumped into the coat rack and something fell out, bouncing off the floor.
What was that?
Amy's mom kneeled to inspect it. Josephine already knew and closed her eyes in despair.
Amy, darling, why is there a gun in our home?
Mr. Sierra's formerly friendly voice had now become the voice of someone about to call the police.
It's mine. I didn't know I was going to stay the night, and walking alone at night scares me.
Mrs. Sierra handed her the pistol with an absolutely stunned face. Amy, you would do well to make sure your guests don't bring lethal weapons with them.
Yes, Mother, I'm sure it was an honest mistake. Joe lives a bit downtown. It must be in some abyss if she feels she has to carry something like that around. We're disappointed, Amy.
Amy's father scanned Josephine with his eyes from head to toe.
We'll be traveling for another week. When we return, I expect the house to be clean, vacant, and weapon-free. Yes, Father, I'm sorry. And you, Joe, do remember to leave that gun home when you go demonstrating or whatnot. I don't want the police to get any wrong ideas about you if my daughter is near. Of course, sir. Sorry, sir.
And so Mr. and Mrs. Sierra left the house. There was a short lull as everyone took in the blissful silence.
I am so sorry. I thought I'd tucked the gun in well enough. Not your fault. I'm sorry my mom's a bitch. I wasn't exactly nice to her either.
The only thing more hilarious than you provoking that crone was Bob acting like a student. Hey now.
What? I thought I nailed it. You did your best, Bob. I'm proud of you.
We should have let Norbert handle it alone. Your mom was in love with him. Was it just me, or did she think I was your boyfriend?
She definitely thought you should be. I'm sorry if that was awkward.
Everything about this morning was awkward, but we have to plan for the future. It looks like we can't stay here.
Maybe the rest of us can look for a place while Amy does her demonstration thing.
Good idea. Honest to God, Amy, did you know your father owns Nephthys shares?
No, I swear, I knew nothing of his business. I'm as shocked as you are. He seemed to know something about Nephthys that we don't.
I'm surprised she didn't press him while she had the advantage there.
Yeah, however, we did get the info, don't go into his office.
Yep.
I wonder if he's got info there. I noticed it too. Maybe we can use it. I can try to interrogate him when he comes back. Good idea, though I don't think he knows any details. Francis plans on a need-to-know basis. Hey, Doc, where were you?
I was getting fresh air on the balcony. Why does everyone keep acting like that's a crime? Fresh air as in smoking? Fine. You got me. I'm a bad doctor, aren't I? To atone for this sin, I want you to clean the table. Aye, aye, Sergeant.
I'll go help him.
Man. I mean, it made sense that had to come to an end at some point, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the kitchen, Josephine closed the door.
So, where were you really?
Excuse me?
You don't smoke. Where were you really?
I got a message from Jenna.
Jenner? Why? And why didn't you tell us?
Norbert pulled up a chair and sat down. Last night there was a riot downtown. Security forces were called to break it up.
Casualties?
9 people died, and some 20 more were hurt. were all brought to Jenna.
Good, they could have just left them there.
No, you don't understand. One of them needed a cybernetic implant.
So they wanted your help.
They needed it. There are only a few hundred people in the world who do what I do. And they couldn't find one, so a colleague tried to contact me.
It could have been a trap. In fact, it most likely was.
Which is why I didn't respond at all. And now that boy might be dead because of it. I feel the thought, but I've been gone for months. What if others have died because of it?
You've helped hundreds in need on our gigs.
Any doctor, heck, any nurse could have done those things. I don't want to sound like a pretentious ass.
But your talents are wasted in handing out cough drops. I get it. You brought me back from the dead.
And every day I'm not at the operating table or in the cybernetics lab, someone might die because of it.
What about the greater good? With us, you're not just helping those the system hurts. You're fighting the system.
Building fireproof houses instead of being a fireman?
Yeah, something like that.
What if I told you I think I'm a better fireman? Or that I miss being a fireman?
You miss working at Jenner?
Oh no, I'll never work for a private hospital again, but I do miss doing what I'm best at. Being where I'm most useful. If I were completely honest, I'm not a great criminal.
Do you want to leave us?
I don't want to leave you.
I don't want you to leave me either.
Good. And he kissed her. It felt good. It felt right. Until Josephine remembered that time she'd almost kissed Ronnie. She pulled back. I'm sorry, did I read that situation wrong? I'm really bad at picking up on cues and I'm just... I've gone and fucked it again.
No, not at all. It's just with all that's going on, my mind isn't exactly on this.
I understand. Dating your patients is wrong in any case.
It's not that. I'm not your patient anymore, and I like you. I really do. Now is just not the best time.
Okay, do you think that at some later point there could be? I'm gonna drop a hot save right here, because this game is mostly linear, but there is at least one branching decision in it. So,
something between us? Maybe. When the good fight's been won, but I can't make promises. I'm a mess right now.
Alright, then I'll wait and fight by your side.
Even if nothing comes of it?
Even then.
Thank you.
They cleared the table together in silence. Josephine's heart beat fast. She used the exact same excuse with Ronnie. It didn't feel good. Yeah, so there is, obviously you have two options of who Joe gets romantically involved with, and apparently it does affect the story as well. I don't know when that decision comes up, but I'm pretty sure that's the only, I think that's the only kind of flex point in the game, but I could be wrong.
We'll find out.
Amy was waiting impatiently for them to join the group. Ronnie and Bob were with her.
The demonstration is happening. All kinds of organizations are joining. Can we expect people to show up? At least a few thousand. Nephthys is probably going to put up a counter-protest.
Are they going to hire protesters? Oh, hey, mouse.
Some, but a lot of people will most likely show up on their own. Who would do that? People who want to show they support the police. People who support privatization no matter the cost.
You mean people on the wrong side of the thin blue line? Get it? Get what I did there? I'm trying, okay? And now dumbasses with a vague feeling about which side annoys them more.
Oh yeah, lots of those. Also lots of police officers. Not security companies? Not on the highest level of the city. Nephthys is sure to insist that City Hall protect their interests as visibly as possible. So there will be cops in riot gear with guns. Yes, most likely they'll come in armored cars and survey the whole area with drones.
Oh good, I just was waiting for another chance for that trauma to come back up.
If any of us go there, it's game over. Every face in that demonstration will be recorded on video. So, how are you organizing it if you can't go? I'm not. I called all my contacts and old friends, and they called theirs. I told them I was sick. They put me in charge of online coordination.
Meaning?
We push the message on every online platform, publish pictures, and issue warnings to leaders on the ground. Warnings? Yeah, like if someone lets us know that the police are blocking exit routes from the plaza, we can alert everyone and make a run for it. Or if the police get violent, we can guide people accordingly. We don't want anyone to get hurt.
And if someone does get hurt?
Not to sound cynical, but if the police beat or shoot someone, it serves our goals. We have to make it as public as we can.
That does sound a bit cynical, but it does make sense as well. Are there people with first aid capabilities on the ground?
Yes, I was hoping you could help me with that, actually. Stand by in case you need to give someone advice on the phone.
Will do. That's my new name, William Do. I'm trying it out. What do you think?
Pretty good.
Josephine, I've just noticed that you and I basically have the same haircut.
Yours has only one wiggly bit in front, and mine's got 3. So
That's true.
I think we know who wins.
I also do not have your cuteness tendrils, which are very, very... Well, that would not be proper at this moment.
You said we have to be pushing our message. What is that message? What will you say to the media? That Nephthys needs to act according to its motto. Water is a human right, and human rights are not for sale. That's good. Hell, you sure know your stuff. I'm the vice chairperson, remember?
Have you set a date yet?
In 2 days. So soon. It has to be soon. Last night the security companies killed 9 people at a water protest. Strike the iron while it's hot.
Josephine gave Norbert a look. He just stared at the ground.
Hey, at least we can do this from here before we have to leave your mansion. Yeah, I kind of hate missing the whole thing. Don't. We're gonna have exciting times afterwards.
Being fugitives and all.
I just realized that everybody's outfits have a green and red color theme. Every character.
Well, also, did you notice that the entire game is only done in those colors? Notice how you've... have you noticed how everything is basically green and red, with occasional shades of purple, pink, and blue?
It's weird that everyone's all matchy-matchy.
Yeah, but I mean, there's not been a single yellow in this entire game. Nor has there been an orange.
I see.
Anyway, what are we gonna do after this? We said we wouldn't do gigs before the demonstration, but...
We should get back to it immediately after. Strike the iron while it's hot, right? And find out what Nephthys is after.
You're still convinced there's a master plan?
Even more after speaking with Amy's dad.
Let's go break into his office that... Oh wait, they said he's unlikely to know the specifics. We'll have to find a way to deal with increased security. Attacking the pipes won't be easy with drones and armored cars everywhere.
And we'll focus on intel for the time being. Intel and building a mass movement. We already have a mass movement, it's just disorganized and leaderless. The demonstration is our chance to become an organized movement. We'll have to figure out how to leave from whatever slum hiding place we're going to next.
And figure out a way to get that intel without taking too many risks. Sounds like this project will never end. What's the matter, Doc? Getting war-weary? Not one bit, but I think we can all agree that we've been on vacation long enough. There's much to do.
Speak for yourself. I've been working my ass off on this protest.
And everyone else has been kind of... Yeah.
And we appreciate that. It's time the rest of us pulled our weight.
I know it's not super important, but sometimes I notice that they mirror the sprites when Joe is on the left versus the right, and then the way her top buttons up will change sides, and I'm like,
I'm imagining it has like a bi-directional button so you can do it either way.
Oh my! So the other one's just hitting on the flap underneath it. Yo, maybe you're onto something there. That day and the next went by in a flurry of activity. Amy drafted them all to write code for neon signs that the protesters would carry. Ronnie checked with her contacts in the security industry. Amy had been right, only official police would be there. Josephine was anxious. She spent most of her time alone, hidden in her room with a laptop.
Relatable.
Yeah, very relatable. Mostly, if you were to put a percentage on that, I'd say it's probably 65% relatable.
I think that, give or take, say 15. Probably give.
I can see that. Okay, if you want to bargain me up a little bit, I suppose I could. It's because it's funnier if we don't make it 80% relatable every time. Okay, never mind. Clearly, only I find this funny. Leave a comment if you find that funny too. Purposely avoiding the obvious joke. Anyway, at one point, Ronnie had come back to check on her. She'd sent her away as kindly as she knew how. When had she become an indecisive mess? She'd always known what she wanted. Then again, for a long time, that had been Francis. So maybe she couldn't claim to have impeccable taste. All she knew was that right now, she couldn't really hang out with either Norbert nor Ronnie. It was a shame because Amy was really in her element and Josephine was missing most of it. Josephine had dismissed her as an ignorant idealist when they'd first met, but Amy was worth her degree. She understood politics, the media, and organizing in a way Josephine never could. Amy had the makings of a prime minister. Too bad she'd chosen a life of crime. But are they really that different? Josephine sometimes wondered if she actually had. All this, the group, the sabotage, had been more or less thrust upon Amy. Sure, she'd chosen to join them, but was it really fair to make such a young person make such a drastic choice? Amy might never get back to university. In all likelihood, this was the last protest she'd organize. And she was so young. Right now, she was in the kitchen learning to cook lasagna with Ronnie.
Ah!
You idiot, that just came out of the oven!
Crap, I need ice.
In the freezer! How fair was it to take someone to war when they didn't know how to cook their own meals yet? Guys, it's the news! On the television that we still watch! They scrambled to the screen. Watching the news together had become a little ritual for their little family. Oh, good evening, and welcome to the channel 411 Metro News. I'm Chris Rivers, and I'm the only one here tonight.
And I am Tina McAllister, and I'm the only one here tonight.
Hi, I'm the guy who writes these things, and I haven't been paid this month. Hold on, let's see. I also haven't had a bathroom break. Oh no! In 7 days? Poor Chiron guy. Also, they locked... Our studio is experiencing technical Oh, poor guy. Why do we always... Oh, that's Bob.
Why do we always watch the same channel?
Bad habit, I guess.
Our top story tonight is about real estate,
That was
and
great.
also me forgetting to read the teleprompter.
Have you always dreamed of a spacious, kid-friendly home that's still within the reach of the center? Well, you might be in luck.
A massive renovation program is turning thousands of crumbling old blocks into beautiful dream homes, but you might have to hurry if you want one.
Crumbling old... You mean... Ah...
How are they not talking about the protest? It's tomorrow.
Instead, they're advertising Nepthys homes. I wonder who paid them.
Those are the same areas that we saw, that we drove through. I can't believe this. Have they got no standards? It's always been like that. You can't trust the news. They're all the same. Bloodsuckers complimenting each other for their excellent bloodsucking. Whatever happened to keeping the gates of democracy? More like conjuring an illusion of it. Shut up, I want to hear this story.
Too late. Maybe now we'll get the protest? On to celebrity news. Tonight, we are happy to announce that an old friend of ours has claimed a seat at the big table.
The meteoric billionaire Frances Brabeck has reached the top. This morning, it was announced that he is now the 7th richest man in the world. Brabeck, who is known for his business vision, has been rising fast for the past few months in all international listings of wealth. His success has been contributed to aggressively growing Nepthys operations while increasing his own share of the company.
Just this morning, he surpassed an oil man, a shopping mogul and a tech prophet. Now we have had Mr. Brabeck many times on this show. But we have never really gotten to know who he is, which is why it's my pleasure to welcome the newest addition to the Big Ten.
Hello, Chris. Hello, Tina.
Every time he says my name.
Hello to you, Mr. Brabeck, and congratulations. How are you feeling? Thank you. This is certainly a surreal experience. I cannot believe my good fortune.
Sir, your success is phenomenal. Can you tell us, what makes you happy in the bedroom? I mean, what drives you?
I believe in fairness, Chris.
Oh, do you?
Indeed. I have spent my life building services that people need.
Oh, God.
Striving for a better world doesn't just get you out of bed. It gets you into bed. It also makes you happy.
I caught that one. You know what? I feel like we've played a lot of Cyberpunk games.
Yeah?
And I feel like of all the ones we've played so far, this one might hit the punk aspect of it the best.
Yeah!
This is one of the most, like, absolutely, brutal depictions of, like, what capitalism actually looks like.
So I feel like there's a lot of stories out there that nail the aesthetic and don't go that far beyond the aesthetic. And this definitely goes beyond the aesthetic.
And even ones that do go beyond the aesthetic and get into it, and do address it somewhat, kind of stop at the more fantastical aspects of a cyberpunk dystopia.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the parts that don't necessarily transfer over to modern day, or only do so in like there's a lot of elements of like surveillance state stuff that gets taught, but the actual way in which capital works to create that dystopian future often gets left out, and this story is all the fuck about it, and I love it. Anyway.
Is this drive for fairness also what kept you from pursuing a career as a professional athlete?
Oh, they really are just complimenting him, huh?
You could say that, Tina. As many of you know, I had a brief career as a swimmer. Ultimately, that just wasn't the place where I could do enough good.
So that's why he's always in the pool. Do you still swim, Mr. Brabeck?
Every day, Chris, swimming is like meditation to me. It helps clear my mind.
Oh my god! Joe knows where he swims.
Yeah? A billionaire, a philanthropist, and Olympic athlete. Francis, I have to ask, how are you still single? Well, Tina, I guess you could say love is the one field where I haven't yet found success.
Oh, it hurts. Surely there must be someone in particular?
I hate to admit this, Chris, but I actually lost someone very special a few months ago. I haven't been able to date since.
Oh.
I guess I'm still heartbroken.
Wait, so does he still genuinely believe that Joe died? Because there's no reason for him to lie about that.
I don't know.
That would be a weird thing to lie about unless he thought Joe was watching.
Yeah, that's what I was figuring, because if he does know that Joe is alive, then he knows Joe would be watching.
Yeah. Josephine could feel she was losing her control of herself.
Excuse me.
And she ran upstairs, struggling to breathe. That interview had to be intentional, her rational brain tried to say. Somehow Francis had figured out exactly what had happened to her and was now baiting her to do something stupid. I just realized if Francis still thinks she's dead, she can totally Monte Cristo this. To expose herself. She threw herself on a bed and curled into as tiny a speck as she could. If she was smaller, then wouldn't the pain she felt be smaller too? No, it turned out. Curled up or not, breathing was hard, and her chest was suddenly hurt like hell. And the tears just kept coming. She'd been doing so well since she left the hospital. 0 panic attacks. Until now. When she eventually calmed down, she was so exhausted that she just rested there for at least an hour.
Relatable.
Again, pretty damn I think we can upgrade it relatability factor. Let's say we're at 70% relatable. How's that sound?
Sure.
Okay. Finally, there was a knock on the door. It was Ronnie. Are you alright?
I'm okay, I guess. I just thought I'd be better by now.
What we went through in the courtyard isn't something that you get over in a couple of months.
I don't see you crying like a baby.
You should have seen me back when I thought you were dead. It was a much bigger mess than you are now. But I've had more time to deal with it, and I never knew that asshole.
I do hope you'll be there when I kill him. Fucking bastard.
That interview went on for almost an hour. Did you know homicidal business shark had a very relatable middle-class childhood?
Tell me he also said he wants to have kids.
Oh, not just that. He said the whole reason he decided to save the world is so he can leave it to his kids one day.
Jesus, do people buy that?
I know tomorrow's headlines will. And the day after they'll write about nothing but the riot in front of the gardens.
You think there's going to be violence?
The way they've directed all media attention elsewhere? I have a feeling. Then again, I'm a bloody pessimist. By the way, Francis is going to be there.
Really?
Yeah, he's inviting all the reporters from the plaza to come inside and have a press conference. Presumably while the cops beat protesters outside.
Figures.
Is there something I can do? For you, I mean.
Look at you, going all soft. No, thank you. I'll just try to get some sleep. I'll feel better tomorrow.
All right. Good night, Joe. Remember, you're not alone.
I will.
As Ronnie left, Josephine began to think she might be more alone than ever. Even worse were the ideas floating in her head. She had to know what Nephthys was doing, and she wanted to confront Francis. Both ideas were stupid, of course. Or were they? She gonna try to pull like some Ghost of Christmas Past shit on him? See? Lots of purple. We do get purple on some scenes. It's very rare, but we do get some purples.
But none of us have it in our outfits.
Yep.
Army Girl has it in her hair.
Yep.
Why can't I have purple?
You can have purple hair if you want, Bob. I'll go pick some up from the pharmacy for you and...
Sick, that sounds rad.
She sat on the balcony, watching the center glitter and glow in the distance. Once again, there was a light at the top of the gardens. Just at the top, Francis was working, alone. Why was Nephthys buying so many houses? She understood it was profitable, but the scale and speed were just too much. Why take such drastic steps if there wasn't a plan behind them? She was sure the answer was somewhere in Nephthys' archives, probably in the city planning section. It was incredibly frustrating to know where the answers were, but not be able to get them. Somewhere in those shelves there was an answer to all of this, a way to hit Nephthys hard.
How you doing? Haven't seen you in that kind of shape since I first met you.
And by that shape, I mean trapezoid. Been learning about gender shapes, too.
I'm better now. How come you're up? I have an innate sense of when people are about to do something stupid. Remember our talks about redecorating the gardens? I just want to jump to that part. Good things are worth the wait. You have things here that you shouldn't throw away. I know, I have you guys. I'm sick of watching Nephthys get bigger and richer and worse and me doing nothing about it. I hear ya, but you know, there's good things. You got Doc and Army Girl going head over heels for you. Most of us are lucky to meet someone. Don't even get me started on that. I have a feeling I did. Sometimes hanging out with one of them feels awesome. Like I was more alive than ever. Sometimes hanging out with both of them does that. And sometimes I'm so torn I just have to get away from both. I feel like I'm somehow cheating on them both just by being there. I'm not really even seeing either one. I'm guessing today was that kind of day, like you were somehow cheating on them both. Big time. And I have a feeling tomorrow will be too. You're gonna do it, aren't you? Do what? Have a little respect. Don't lie to me. You're gonna break into that fancy plant house. I could get in with the journalists. That's your master plan. Sounds like you're gonna die. Are you going to stop me?
Bob sat in silence for a while.
No, I said I'd help you. This could be the dumbest thing I've ever done, but if you're gonna go, I won't rat you out. Just know that if they catch you in there, we won't be able to get you out either. I know. Thanks, Bob. I promise I'll come back and you can all yell at me. But this is something I have to do, you know? What I know is that you crawled back from the dead to get back at those fuckers. I'm smart enough not to get in your way.
Yeah. Death refused her entry, and she decided to take it out on the world. By the time the sun came up, Josephine was already gone. Damn! Oh, we're wearing...
New outfit!
Is that the outfit we were wearing at the beginning of the game?
Is it?
I don't remember.
I don't think so.
It's been several hours.
I don't think the beginning of the game outfit looked like this.
On the doorstep, she wondered if she should take her life support with her. Oh shit, we're gonna go... She decided not to. It was too cumbersome, and it would raise questions if she was inspected. Carefully, she unplugged the cord leading to her chest. She would have to do with the battery inside the heart.
Okay, 6 hours to live.
Would it be enough? She made her way to the center in the brisk morning air. It was raining. Rain didn't bode well for the protest. She was wearing Amy's clothes. She also had Amy's journalist ID. It's a pretty bad plan. The worst thing about it was going to be behind the others' backs. Going behind the others' backs. But they'd never have let her go, and she had to go. And especially putting herself in front of Francis, of all people. Like, many of the windows she passed had some kind of contraption on them for collecting rainwater. She couldn't help but smile about that. No protest hurt Nephthys more directly than losing Prophet. The pouring rain drummed on her coat and soaked into it slowly. Oh, her heart's going to be shown through her soaked clothes. She'd been in such a rush that she'd forgotten her umbrella. The pouring rain formed huge puddles in the lower sections of the road. There was no way around them. The streets were practically empty. She spotted some security guards, night shifters coming home, and others, but she was well ahead of the tide of people. Even the tram was blissfully deserted. Not only did she get a seat, but she was able to choose where she sat. It was also a handy test of Amy's ID. Actually, she had taken Amy's name and employment info and glued it onto her old ID. She was hoping the machine would only check the face and fingerprint. If they matched, she would pass as Amy Sierra. And she did, for the trams anyway. She was the first person to arrive on the plaza opposite the gardens. There was already a police blockade around the building itself. The protesters, at least the ones willing to brave the rain, would start pouring in soon. Pouring.
Like water.
Pouring. Protests were a bit of a gray area in the city. Big organized rallies were incredibly rare, so rare in fact that no law explicitly forbade them. Of course, any protest that got the least bit unruly could be classified as a riot, and would be dealt with accordingly. Most people, including Josephine, never went to protests, and many didn't really care if the police treated hooligans roughly. The vast majority of demonstrations were small, organized by students or activist groups, and more or less invisible in the vast life of a city. Banning them or cracking down on all of them was certainly more trouble than it was worth. One thing they never neglected to do, though, was record everyone who showed up. Many recent graduates would find it difficult to find employment later. Josephine found a small cafe. Oh my god! Cafe and caffeine start with the same word.
Holy shit.
It's the place where you go to get caffeinated. Don't at me. I don't care what the actual etymology of the word is. That just opened. Had uptown prices, but getting something nice for her potentially last meal seemed reasonable enough. She ate a piece of pie and drank some freshly squeezed orange juice along with a huge cappuccino. Got that cherry pie, huh? It was delicious. As she ate, she watched people stream into the plaza. First came all the different organizers with their megaphones and platforms. All Josephine saw was excited teenagers. She checked her watch. She still had about 3 hours before her heart ran out of juice. If these months had taught her anything, it was that 3 hours was a really long time. And yet over in a second. Oh wow! Then the regular people began showing up. Other students, mothers, union activists, teachers, doctors. Water truly brought people together. The protesters actually set up a large protective umbrellas that guided the rainwater into tanks that people could freely drink from. There was no sign of the pouring rain abating, but then again there was no sign of people staying at home because of it either. That alone was half a victory. The abundance of press cameras taking pictures of the crowds was the other half. All they could do was hope that those pictures didn't end up on the cutting room floor. Josephine didn't join the demonstration. She sat in her comfortable coffee house, waiting for the call for reporters to enter the gardens. Raindrops on the window clouded her view. The swarm of people in the plaza was fascinating to observe, most huddled in small groups, leaving gaps for people to pass through. Some never seemed to find their place, walking and milling about here and then there. The loudest and most aggressive protesters made their way to the front or formed small groups that yelled insults at the cops. Police kept their cool and stood in neat rows in complete silence. The occasional idiot tried to test the strength of their line. They always got hurt. In the end, a few thousand people showed up, less than would have if the weather was better, but enough to be noticed. Of course, a few thousand was still a ripple in the ocean, but ripples were rare these days. There were speeches and songs and flag-waving, all to the tune of the constant drumming rain. Josephine was eating her third piece of the ridiculously expensive pie when, finally, neon signs flared up inviting the press inside. Josephine got up, thanked the waiter, and ran for it. She apologized and pushed her way through the dense crowd. The gardens appeared for the first time, ever imposing. In the gray weather, the top floor was completely invisible to the ground, wreathed in a secretive curtain of mist. The outer lights were off, and so the waterfalls reflected only the gray and the black of the nearby empty buildings. Further below, there were electric fences and armed guards to keep the protesters at bay. A small group of reporters huddled by the fence, trying desperately to protect their cameras from the rain. Josephine was the last to join. Getting through that sea of people had taken her a while. The other reporters barely looked at her. They all formed a neat line behind a screaming wall of stout police officers. So far, no one had asked her any questions. So far. There was at least double security at the gates, with policemen and security guards standing as still as statues. The pouring rain continued to leach into her coat.
You can stand here if you want.
Oh my god, she's out! They used her sprayed outside.
They let me out of the TV. Normally, they keep me inside the magic box.
Josephine turned and looked down. Tina McAllister stood there, offering a space under her umbrella.
Thank you.
As Josephine entered the protection of her umbrella, she also picked it up. Tina McAllister was much shorter than she appeared on TV.
I'm a big fan of your show. Glad to meet you. Thank you. Who do you work for? The walking corpse of printed news. Good one. You could be on TV, though. You certainly have the looks for it. You're too kind, and you don't usually report from location. Special request from management. Everyone is covering this, so they want a high-profile face. Of course, otherwise people might get the same news from another channel. Exactly. Are you nervous? We're going to meet Francis Brabeck, after all.
More than you know, Josephine thought.
Absolutely mortified. Excited more than anything else. It's a privilege to meet such a visionary. Haven't you met him before, though? Never in person. I shouldn't tell you this, but those interviews we've had were all like 90% scripted.
You mean he's not really in love with Chris?
That's the 10%.
Really?
Oh yes, Mr. Brabeck is very sensitive of his image, and he owns 37% of our station, so when he asks you to jump, you ask only how high. Doesn't that ever bother you, not being free to report what you want? Oh, but I am free. I get job offers from other stations all the time. But what's the point? We don't cover Brabeck any more than we cover other sponsors. Real journalism is what we do with the money they give us. I see. How come Chris didn't come here? If they want all eyes on you, I mean. He politely asked not to. This might surprise you, but privately we don't really get along.
Because they're both vying for that.
Not at all. He always seemed like kind of a dick to me.
Oh. Tina laughed. Josephine was stunned to notice that Tina's broad smile was permanent. She doubted if there was enough evil in the world to kill that smile.
Chris isn't a dick. He's just, well, he's a professional performer. We all love having all the eyes on us. I guess you'd be doing something different if you didn't. Absolutely. Maybe I'd work for the walking corpse of printed news.
The security guard at the gates motioned to them. Next!
It's my turn.
Tina stepped forward and flashed her ID along with a smile. The guard gestured her to move past. Talking with Tina had been a pleasant distraction. For a while, Josephine had forgotten what was about to happen.
Oh.
Now she couldn't. She stepped forward, slowly. She showed her ID. The guard took a good look at it and then her. Look into this machine, please. What Josephine dreaded. Her face was guaranteed to be in the Neptus system. She looked at the menacing little red dot while it scanned her facial features, eyes and thumbs. Match, it declared. The guard gestured her to move along. The machine had cleared her. Was it possible that it only compared her to the info on her ID card? Her plan had pretty much rested on it. She hurried back into the protection of the crowd of journalists and Tina's umbrella. Either that or they never bothered to deactivate her Nepthys clearance after she died suddenly.
Either that or they deliberately want to let her in the front.
Either that, yep. Now she had to find a needle from a 114-floor high haystack and get out. Her watch buzzed. Ronnie was trying to contact her. Josephine didn't respond. She was too far in to be persuaded out of it. Besides, communications in and out of the building were likely monitored. Responding increased her chances of being caught.
Was there a problem? You know those machines. Yeah, I once forgot my ID and they almost didn't let me in at work. What? Everyone knows your face. Except that one guard who doesn't watch the news, apparently. Oh my god, I never asked your name, did I? It's okay. Amy Sierra. Do you have any idea what today's conference is going to be about? Good to meet you, Amy. Well, they have to say something about the demonstration, but that's not a very sexy topic.
Who hasn't impersonated Amy at this point?
Bob. Norbert.
Bob and Norbert. Come on, you two. Impersonate Amy at one point. Everyone else is doing it.
I'm guessing he's going to talk about the new central water supply. It's supposed to open in a few days. Already? It's like they just announced they were going to do it. Yeah, but you know how it goes. They planned them for years before they announced them.
Josephine knew all right. She designed the damn place. And now it stood on the spot where she used to live. A guide led the entire group to the second floor. There were at least 100 people, including cameramen, sound technicians, and reporters. It was strange walking these halls. For so many years they'd been her second home. Nothing had changed about them, but she no longer felt at home.
Oh my gosh, look!
Tina pointed to the window. The rain had intensified into a storm. Heavy winds beat the windows, causing the whole building to creak. The trees on the terrace outside swung and lost their leaves to the tempest. The screen of water flew in all directions, adding to the pouring rain. But that wasn't what Tina had pointed to. Outside on the plaza, chaos reigned. The lines of policemen were advancing, beating and electrocuting the protesters back. Drones flew overhead, dousing the area with tear gas. Some of the protesters had clearly been prepared and were now distributing gas masks and swimming goggles. Others had produced little weapons of their own and were fighting, using their superior numbers to their advantage. But there was no question about who was going to win. The question was, would the protesters have the good sense to scatter before the policemen opened fire?
Horrible. What happened? It was perfectly calm just minutes ago. You don't think? They were waiting for us to be called in. When all cameras are on Mr. Brabeck, they can do whatever they want. Thank God we're in here, and they're out there, and I'm out there, and we're in here, and...
You're back in the box. Now back to me.
Anyway, we should go now. We're falling behind. Actually, the conference room is just around the corner. I think I'll go use the ladies' room now. You know where it is. Thank God. I almost pissed myself here. Too many cappuccinos to go, am I right? Sure, it's this way.
Crap. There was nothing wrong with Tina, but the whole point was to get rid of her.
By the way, what magazine do you report for? You dodged my question there. Sorry about that. I work for a fashion magazine. I was a bit ashamed to be with a really famous journalist. There's nothing to be ashamed about. I started my career as a lottery girl. Which fashion magazine?
Josephine didn't read fashion magazines. She could only hope that neither did Tina.
Fashion Watch. I love Fashion Watch. I'll have to keep an eye out for your articles. What's your angle here? I'm doing a lifestyle piece on Mr. Brabeck, you know, because he joined the Big Ten. Of course, just be warned. He always wants to review the content carefully. Men like him have to. Figures. That's the rest from there. I thought you were going to use it too. I have to make a call first. Why don't I meet you back there? Of course. See you later.
Do you think Tina knows who she is?
Tina has seen her face broadcasted on her news program, but I don't know that she'd remember.
Because that would have been 6 months ago.
Yeah.
So does she remember a face from 6 months ago that she broadcasted once?
I don't know.
And if so, is she... How deep in that is she? Is she... like, oh, maybe I'll watch and see how this unfolds, or...
I don't know.
With that, Tina went to the bathroom and Josephine was finally alone. Also, like, now to find the archives. She realized she needed a staff badge. Who worked on this floor? Marketing. She headed for the staff section. It would be closed by an electric lock. Some employees were just stepping out, clearly heading for lunch.
Wait, don't close the door. I forgot my ID.
A nice young man let her in without any questions. She walked around the hallways, trying to look determined and not like she was lost. It was hard walking forward with determination while also keeping an eye out for coats and other things that might have a personnel badge in them. Was this what life was like for pickpockets? The marketing section was a series of hallways with 100 small glass-walled offices. It was noon, so many people were now either having lunch or attending meetings. Many others had probably called in sick due to the demonstration. All in all, the section was mostly deserted. Josephine found some coats that no one was watching and started going through the pockets. No dice, though she did find a chocolate bar she wasn't above stealing. While digging through them, she heard footsteps. Someone with heels was coming her way. She quickly grabbed the coat and began putting it on. "Hey, that's mine!" the middle-aged woman shouted.
Is it? Oh my god, I'm so sorry. Mine must be down the hall.
The woman grabbed her coat and stared into her eyes. "You're already wearing a coat." Perhaps she was. The woman clearly wanted an explanation. She was about to ask more questions. Josephine burst into tears.
I'm so sorry. My boyfriend dumped me last night and now I'm just messed up. I have a coat like that, but it's at his place.
The tears came much more naturally than she would have thought. In front of her friends, she always maintained a brave face. Right now, there was no reason to hold back, so she decided to go with it.
We were planning to get engaged, and that shithead just...
Oh, now, dear, it's okay. Did he hurt you?
He cheated on me with one of my friends.
Pig, just like that funky Jensen. Do you hear he's sleeping with another secretary? He's married with kids!
I can? What a bastard.
You don't say. You know what? Take the day off. You're clearly not well. Come back tomorrow when you're feeling better. You'll get over it. I sense that you're strong.
But Jensen won't like it if I...
He's your boss? Poor you. Don't worry. I'll talk to him as soon as I get back from lunch. Maybe your boss, but I'm his. What was your name again?
Kendrick, ma'am.
No need to be so formal. You go home, girl. Tomorrow's a new day. You'll feel better.
Thank you so much. You're very kind.
Oh, don't mind it. Oh, and one more thing.
Yes?
Find new friends. Real friends. Don't go behind each other's backs.
Oof.
Ha 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 ha! The woman took her coat and walked off. Josephine took a deep breath and dried her tears. Now she felt bad about stealing the woman's chocolate bar. And about going behind her friends' backs. She had to keep looking.
How much time we got? Whoa!
To think that she used to spend all her days in a glass box just like these. And that she used to like it, want more of it. A bigger glass box on a higher floor had been the sum of her ambition. Now it seems so meaningless. She walked down the hall, she heard muffled laughter and noises. There was an office larger than the others. The blinds were closed, but the door was open. She peeked inside. Noises were coming from the bathroom attached to the office. The sign on the door read Jensen. Of course, Jensen, secretary. Could there be... Carefully, she slipped inside and snuck over to the large oak desk. Behind the desk, there was a chair, and on the chair, pants. Jensen's pants. She quickly went through the pockets, and there it was. Attached to the belt was a superior level keycard. Supervisor. She sighed with relief and undid the clasp and gripped the small card triumphantly. Based on the sound, Jensen and his secretary were just about done with their business. Josephine hurried out, but not before opening the blinds on the off chance someone would see them come out. She couldn't help but smile with excitement. So far, her little operation had gone swimmingly. Almost too swimmingly. 6 months ago, when she still worked here, she would have been too obedient to run a red light, let alone spy on a corporation. On her way to the elevator, she passed by her own department. She pulled up her collar and stared at the ground. There was a chance that even now, after all that had happened, someone would recognize her. Finally, she reached the elevator. Waiting for it to come seemed like an eternity. Now, where did the city planning department keep the records? Most records were kept in the archives in the basement, but city planning was pretty high up on the 82nd floor. Anything secret would most likely be there. She took the elevator up. Rising up reminded her of her last day at work, her one and only trip to the top.
Is she gonna run into Francis on the elevator?
Francis is giving a,
Oh, he's already down there.
Yeah, Francis is giving a,
Okay.
Yeah. Press conference. She checked her watch, an hour and a half to live. Shit, she needed to hurry. She also took a look at the ID. Jensen's first name was Rick. Too bad. As soon as she was out, she could call someone to meet her halfway and bring the charger. To her surprise, there was no lunch break going on at the 82nd floor. Everyone was at work. City planning was nothing like marketing. Here, the floor was divided into wide open spaces with plants, waterfalls around the walls, and comfy lounge sofas everywhere. The offices were spacious. and on the northern side, big glass windows brought light into a space where young, well-dressed people worked on sleek laptops. Obviously, this section was considered worth more money than marketing. There were also large holographic models of the city, accurate to the tiniest detail. She knew many of the places, and one of them she had designed. It was at the center of the room, and it was massive, reaching almost to the roof, the central water supply. It resembled a big spider, and at the center there would be the largest above-ground water tank in the world. To and from the tank, which hung in the air just above the ground, hundreds of pipes led to water into the city. Combined with the tank system was a huge drilling plant which would draw up groundwater to be purified. The purifier section also recycled as much of the city's wastewater as it could. Josephine couldn't help but feel proud of her work. Not many plumbing engineers got to turn their work into city landmarks. This would be one. It was just in the worst possible hands.
Can I help you?
Someone asked. Josephine turned. It was a young man. What?
I feel like we have really bad sense for who to give what voices to.
That's fine. It was a young man holding a laptop and a coffee cup.
Actually, yes, I'm Jensen from Legal. I need some of the new land deeds. Alright, come this way.
The man led her across a space full of holograms. Josephine noticed that they were labeled.
These are downtown city blocks. For now, what you're looking at is the city of tomorrow, Epcot.
And we all know how that turned out.
It sure looks fancier than the city of today. That's the plan. What deeds did you needs? Everything from the past month. I also need to see all the relevant contracts with the city. That's a huge pile. Did we get sued? Not yet, but we're preparing a strategy in case we do. Smart. Anything else? Yes, actually, in light of recent events, it would be really good if we could see the water contracts too. The municipal water contracts? I'm sorry, but they've already been moved to the CWS, and I don't have the classification for them.
At the back of the hall, there was an electric door.
You have to show me your card. Of course.
Thankfully, Rick Jensen was management. His card opened the door.
Thanks, I'll find what I need.
The door closed behind her. She sighed deeply and laughed out loud. All these different roles were going to get her in big trouble if she didn't get out soon. And so was her heart. She checked her watch. Every single one of her friends had tried to contact her several times. She ignored them. No time. The archival room was just that, a room with a lot of computers and shelves. On her right, the entire wall was just a big paneled window, with a thin waterfall maintaining plant life on the terrace outside. The water made the great daylight dance around the room in the wildest of patterns. On her left, the wall was full of receptacles. Of course. The city planning department needed something that was in a physical form. They typed an order. And downstairs in the basement, a robot would retrieve the set of documents, and a minuscule elevator would bring it here. A surprising amount of data was still kept in physical form. It had a key advantage. It was impossible to corrupt or steal remotely. History had shown that nothing electric could be safeguarded forever. But nothing truly incriminating would be stored in the automated basement. What she was looking for was right in front of her. Opposite to her, the room had ended in a massive steel door with a daunting-looking mechanism. Behind that door was the classified section of the archives. Any secrets Nephthys had would be behind that door. That was where she needed to go. Walking through the small room, she tried to open the huge steel door, but wasn't surprised to be denied entry. Jensen was a supervisor, but whatever was in the classified section was above his pay grade by far. That just made Josephine want to enter it even more. She pressed herself as close to the door as she could. She heard no sound. As far as she knew, there was no one in there. If she could just get past that wall of steel, she would have access to more or less all of Nephthys' secrets. Risking her luck to try and steal another badge from a crowded city planning section was too foolhardy. She looked around for an opening. She didn't see any. The window. There was space for some trees on the terrace outside, so there might be a space for her to crawl to the classified section. That section had a window, too. She really hoped it would. And the thunder was now so loud that it covered almost any noise. Josephine grabbed an office chair and swung it against the window as hard as she could. It bounced back, flew across the room, and left her hands jittering with pain.
Shit.
A strong gale blew straight against the building and caused the window panels to shake. She had a new idea. The panels were high and about a meter wide, joined by some unknown mechanism. She had a small pocket knife on her. She pushed its blade between the panels and began to wiggle it. Slowly the panels came apart. She did the same trick for the other side of the same panel. Eventually she got her fingers into the gaps. The heavy panels squeezed them from both sides. It hurt. Grunting, she pulled with every muscle she had, taking support from the wall. Creaked so loud it hurt her ears, the panel lifted and she fell back. It didn't fully come off, though. It was still attached to the top. A heavy curtain of some glass-like plastic mixture hung from the roof, but was free of its neighbors. And Josephine could now squeeze herself through the gap.
Mind the gap.
No, this is a gap with one A. This is a different kind of gap. Fingers still throbbing, she crouched and pulled the gap wider. She slid one leg onto the terrace, then another, and then still holding on her torso. She is afraid of heights! What are you doing? First things to greet her were a sheet of water falling from the roof, and then the howling wind throwing rain in her face. The cold made her squeal and gasp. The terrace was just wide enough for trees planted there. She took some consolation knowing that if she fell, she would only hit the next terrace, which she could see below. Sort of. Realizing how high she was instantly made her stomach turn. She closed her eyes, sunk to her knees, and hugged the palm tree next to her. There was no way she could make it. Not this high. The realization paralyzed her. She looked to her right. The terrace extended to the start of the secret section, but no further. Clinging to the trees and the grass between them, she slowly made her way on all fours. Whenever she could, she squeezed herself between the wall and a tree. That was the only place she felt safe. Then thunder boomed again. She was now soaked with both rainwater and water from the waterfall, which she was crawling directly under. If lightning struck, she would die. Far below on the square, she could see the battle underway. More protesters had shown up when they heard the police were trying to suppress them. It was turning into the riot of the century. Many of the rioters wielded rocks or batons of their own. Some even carried shields and bicycle helmets. And above it all, but still far below her, was another battle. Police drones played screeching noises from loudspeakers and dropped tear gas. Someone had brought commercial drones with them that tried to smash into the police drones. Fragments of metal flew in the air and rained down like the storm. The police had started to use water cannons. Josephine couldn't look anymore. She didn't want to see the violent spectacle. She wanted to get to the secret section. When she reached the edge of the terrace, she cursed again. She wasn't close enough to open the window there with her knife. The very best, if she reached out, she might be able to grab it with one hand. Should she give up? If there was anything in the general section, then see if there was anything in the general section, then get out? Then she would have come all this way for nothing. There was another option, but she was reluctant to use it. She still had Ronnie's gun. But if she shot the window, people might hear it all the way down the plaza. And even worse, they might hear it on this floor, or the one above. But what choice was there? Pulled the gun and, biting her lips, shot the glass. Sure, the gunshots were incredibly loud, deafening even. When she closed her eyes, she could see the other side of the rainy day, and she could see that other rainy day in her courtyard, when she'd been shot. The glass shattered into tiny fragments and flew in all directions before disappearing below.
I just realized that we lost a wonderful chance to call an episode Shot Through the Heart and You're to Blame.
Oh my god!
Son of a bitch!
Son of a bitch!
That would have been perfect!
That would have been perfect! Oh, we should have called it that.
Francis, you give love a bad name.
She shot twice more and the panel was mostly gone. Only her heart rate seemed to have hurt it. Now there was only the matter of getting to the window. Josephine reached out with her hand and got a hold of the window frame. The waterfall made things difficult to see. Holding onto the frame, she slowly stood up. Very slowly. She fixed her eyes on the open window. Nothing else mattered. Very carefully, she lifted one foot along the wall until it was on the windowsill. There was still sharp glass attached to it, like a row of knives or shark's teeth. Shaking like a leaf and no longer holding back the tears, she carefully kicked the glass away so she could get a foothold. As soon as she did, her body froze again. There was now just about nothing between her and falling to her death. She took a deep breath and stepped into the window. She now stood with one foot on the edge of the deepest abyss she had ever seen. She tried to hop inside, and slipped. By some miracle, she fell inside the building, but not before landing on the row of jagged glass, with all of her weight behind her. Behind her unfortunate left hand. The shark bite hurt a lot. Josephine didn't hold back the scream. She didn't have to, the door was soundproof, only the thunder hurt her.
Ah! Fuck.
Tears blurred her vision. For several minutes, she sat there, frozen and shivering. Once her heart rate normalized a little, she carefully turned her head and looked at her hand. It was a mangled porcupine of blood and glass. By some miracle, her fingers were intact. One by one, she picked up the shards that she could see, all the while moaning in pain. When she was done, she slowly got up, reached out of the window with her hand, and let the ice-cold waterfall rush the worst of the blood away. Pain was incredible, but she'd made it. She was in the secret section. She looked around. The room was much like the other one, except for the large hologram in the center, depicted the entire city. She went to it and turned on the simulation. She was not disappointed.
My God.
She had found exactly what she had come looking for. Getting out was much easier than getting in. All of the doors opened on the inside for fire safety reasons. In the regular archive room, she grabbed some folders to make it look like they were what she'd come for. What she could do now was walk to the elevators quickly and with confidence. Perhaps no one would notice she was dripping water and blood. In her pocket she had a copy of what she'd found, what she'd give to the world. No one bothered her on her way out. The whole city planning department was by the window watching the battle in the plaza unfold. Every once in a while, the crowd yelled and cheered. This was entertainment for them. So removed was city planning from violence 82 floors down that they were literally snacking while watching it. In their excitement, none of them noticed the shaking woman limping past them, leaving behind her a puddle of water and blood. As soon as she was past them, Josephine called an elevator. She had to wait a while. It was fine. She was so tired that she had to lean her head against a wall. Checked her watch. 42 minutes to live. Approximately. The less time she had, the more that word terrified her. She had to call the others from the elevator. At this point, it didn't matter if the call was intercepted. She'd get out before they could react. Just take the elevator to the lobby and walk forward, she told herself. Francis is gonna get on, huh? The doors opened. Josephine found herself looking straight into Tina's eyes. And she wasn't alone. Son of a bitch!
Ms. Lace, good afternoon.
Josephine dropped the file she'd been holding. Francis was smiling, so was Tina, and two other people who looked like her cameramen.
Amy, I thought I'd lost you. Come on in.
And Josephine stepped in. What choice did she have? Was Tina with them? She was the one person in this building who Josephine wouldn't have suspected. Which is probably why she shouldn't have trusted her. Josephine had a hand on the grip of her gun.
Mr. Brabeck, this is Amy Sierra. She's a very nice fashion reporter I met downstairs. Wait, you called her something else, didn't you? I've known her as Miss Lace for a while. Has this changed?
Wait, Tina wasn't with them?
It has actually. It's Mrs. Sierra now. In that case, congratulations are in order, Mrs. Sierra. Do you two know each other? We go way back. Years, in fact. Really? Why didn't you tell me, Amy?
She thought through all the roles she'd played that day. Jensen from Regal. Boyfriend left me, so please have pity. Amy Sierra, the fashion journalist. Took her a few seconds to separate them. She understood what was going on. Tina and her crew were bystanders. Francis couldn't do anything while they were there. As long as she was with them, she was safe.
Mr. Brabeck has asked me not to speak of it. I was his personal fashion consultant for a while. We designed his entire wardrobe together. You gave clothing tips to Francis Brabeck. Oh, she did indeed. In fact, I've been quite helpless since she quit 6 months ago. Why did you quit? That sounds like a dream job. I decided I wanted to give fashion advice to as many people as I could, even to those who can barely afford it. I had to choose one job or the other. And I'm terribly sad that you didn't choose me. Have you enjoyed your new job? No change of heart yet?
Well, one heart. Ha! Francis smiled at her, so he did know. Josephine smiled back. She fondled the grip of her gun and cursed the fact that as long as Tina was there, she couldn't do anything either.
No, I'm happier than ever. The fashion magazine industry is really on the brink of a revolution. The old order will be swept away like water down a drain. I wouldn't miss that show for the world. I think we're going to build something remarkable. You would do well to be cautious about it. These kinds of trade wars can hurt the whole industry. And everyone in it.
I love this conversation because they're like, I love this kind of shit so much, where they're clearly having a different conversation going on.
Yeah.
And also the part in the revenge film where finally they come face to face with the person they want to kill, but they can't pull the trigger yet. Yep.
Why were you so shy earlier, Amy? Your job sounds fascinating. It is not a single boring day. I'm never going back to the past, but I might go back to the future. That's good. They should make that into a movie. The future is the only goal worth pursuing. I couldn't agree more. The only real choice is what kind of a future we wish to have.
Francis nodded with half a smile.
I can't believe you're old friends with Frances Brabeck. It's a shame we've lost touch recently. You're so busy these days that keeping track of you is almost impossible.
Holy shit.
I'm sorry I've been so busy. If you want to free up my schedule, you can always win my fashion magazine war for me. You have the resources. I wish I could, but that would go against my business ethics.
The elevator reached the lobby. Josephine thought about it. If she shot Francis and made a break for it, she might get out. But that would risk the information she carried, and it was too valuable. Francis would have to wait.
I promise you, Francis, I'll find time for you soon. Nothing matters to me more. I'm going to miss you, Ms. Sierra.
Josephine didn't reply. She was already halfway through the lobby when she heard Francis shout.
Have a sunny day, Ms. Sierra.
Sunny day. Had Francis taken leave of his senses? The storm was still raging outside. Maybe he'd realized what Josephine had been doing in city planning. He would go immediately to check if she had succeeded.
You are a fascinating character, Amy. We should have lunch sometime. Yeah, we absolutely should. Hey, which way are you going? Maybe we could split a cab. Oh, I'm being picked up by a car from work. I'm sorry I can't give you a ride. That's alright, it's not a long walk and I'm already soaked anyway. See you later. Wait, take my card. I'll be in touch.
Tina and her crew hurried out of the rain and into a waiting car, and Josephine was left alone in the plaza, alone with thousands of angry people fighting, that is. The riot was winding down, though, or at least moving elsewhere. We have 35 minutes to live. There were still groups wrestling with the police, but most protesters had fled or been arrested. Ambulances had begun to arrive to care for the wounded. The tear gas had mostly dissipated. Josephine began walking across the plaza. She used the black screen of her watch as a mirror to check behind her. 2 men were following her. Sunny day had been code for agents to bring her in as soon as the reporters were gone. Call Norbert immediately. Josephine, where have you been? How could you do this? We've been so worried about you.
Yell at me later. I'm at the plaza near the gardens. I got some intel that changes everything, and I'm being followed by 2 men. And I've got approximately 33 minutes to live, and I'm bleeding.
Bleeding? Okay, keep walking. I'm not far away.
You're not?
We figured out where you'd gone long before Bob caved and told us. I have the life support device for you.
Do you have a way to get rid of my tails?
I'm working on it. Now keep walking. And Josephine did. At the edge of the plaza where she was headed, there was still a thick crowd of people. She could have lost her tails there, but there was also a wall of policemen blocking her way, beating the protesters. How on earth was she supposed to get through that? The commotion grew louder. Those protesters who still hadn't left were the kind who wanted to fight the police. And they gave as good as they got.
Norbert, I'm never going to get through.
As I said, I'm working on it. She was almost there. The men following her were getting closer. She was sure they could convince the police to detain her. The policemen were swinging their batons with their backs to her. There was no tapping these cops on the shoulder. What the hell, Josephine thought. She'd been through the ringer today already. She wasn't going to give up now. She lunged between 2 policemen, trying to push through. One of them pushed her back and smacked her on the head with a baton. Josephine fell to the ground. Her head was swimming. Josephine!
Norbert, where are you?
I'm right here, Josephine. I'm right here. Norbert had knelt next to her. He was wearing his lab coat.
Those men, those 2 in long coats, they're the ones.
All right, then get up. Let's go. Norbert helped her up and began walking her to the police officer commanding the line. Excuse me. Civilians are to leave this area, the man bellowed. I am a doctor. This woman is not a protester. She was trying to leave when those 2 men began following her. Norbert pointed to the men in long coats. Then who is she exactly? The policeman asked.
My name is Jensen. I work at Nepthys.
She flashed her stolen ID card with the thumb on the first name. Oh, I see. Hold on. We'll get you out of here. Follow me. The officer led them away. They were just about to reach the ambulances at the corner of the plaza. Here, there was no real fighting, just a number of protesters who demanded their friends back and stopped ambulances from leaving. Fortunately, no one was in critical condition. And right then, the 2 agents reached them. Hold on, one of them shouted. These 2 are criminals who broke into Nepthys premises. They must come with us. Policeman folded his arms. Isn't that funny? Because they had ID cards and saying you're following them for no good reason. That woman stole the ID card of a man named Rick Jensen. We work for Nepthys Security. We have badges. This woman has committed a crime, then that is up to the police to decide. The agent looked at Norbert. The doctor, too. The doctor, too? He's a co-conspirator fired from Jenner for sabotage? Josephine once again fondled her gun. It wouldn't do her any good. And then before the policeman could make a decision, Ronnie happened. That's what Ronnie happened. She stormed out of the blue, opened a tear gas grenade, and threw it on the ground between everyone. Then she grabbed the policeman's baton, hammered him on the head with it, and fell upon the agents. This wasn't in the plan. Ronnie didn't respond. Possibly she didn't even hear since she was the only one with a gas mask. The stunned agents were on the ground in seconds. Ronnie rushed to Josephine and put a second gas mask on her. She hadn't brought a third. She grabbed Josephine and pulled her into the ambulance crowd, viciously striking anyone who got in the way. Josephine struggled to see and breathe. Her hand hurt and her arm and her chest. One nurse tried to stop them. She got kicked in the stomach and smacked on the back till she was on the ground. So went a policeman and a few protesters. Ronnie beat them so hard Josephine could have sworn she saw blood in the air. Suddenly, Ronnie looked a lot like one of those men who'd shot her. Josephine was suddenly having trouble moving.
How much time we got?
Ronnie yanked her onward, harder. 22 minutes. Norbert almost got left behind as he kept stopping to cough. Josephine grabbed him with her wounded hand. It hurt, but she squeezed hard. She couldn't really tell what was going on. It was all so fast. She could only focus on one thing. She focused on not letting go of either one of her saviors. Finally, they were out of the gas, the mass of people. Amy's car was waiting. Ronnie opened the door for dizzy and bleeding Josephine, a coughing, crying Norbert, and herself. They drove off. Josephine closed her eyes and took off the mask. Pain was getting worse, but she was safe. Finally. She began to drift off. The last thing she did was make sure she still had her precious intel. It was there in her pocket. What did we just risk our life for? And also, that was badass.
Yeah, holy fuck.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Consequences.
Consequences?
You hurt people. Complete bystanders. You were about to get both of you killed. They'd driven back to base in almost complete silence. Norbert's moaning and coughing had been the only noise. Amy hadn't said anything to anyone. Josephine had gotten so weak on the way that Bob had to carry her inside.
Whoa.
She too had been exposed to the gas, just not as much. Bob had laid her down on the couch gently. Her arms weighed so much. As soon as they'd gotten back and Norbert had rinsed his eyes, he began shouting. Josephine tried to listen, but it was too difficult to keep up. That policeman was helping us get out! He would have stopped helping and helped bring you in. What about the others? You beat 7 people into the hospital for no reason. They got in the way. I had no time to talk. You weren't supposed to be there at all. Well, you didn't stick around for a planning session. I came because I knew you wouldn't be able to handle it. Politeness won't stop their agents.
I see.
Yeah, well, we're gonna die here, huh? You tear-gassed me and Josephine! I brought a mask for her, didn't I? But not for me!
Guys!
We're fighting a war, Norbert. You have to take the mittens off. Either we fight back or we die.
Guys!
We can't behave like some thugs.
Guys!
What?
Josephine's not doing so good.
They turned and saw Josephine, immobile, pale as a ghost. Her eyes were moving around wildly. She's not plugged in! Get the charger, she's going to have a heart attack! Ronnie rushed to bring the charger. Josephine was cold. Fuck, 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 fuck! Wake up, Joe, wake up! Grunting and with no finesse, Norbert plugged her in. She didn't respond. Get the defibrillator!
Where is it?
Where we keep the medical supplies!
And where is that? The upstairs bathroom.
No, it's at the helicopter. The helicopter that they still have?
Yeah!
Why is it so far away? I didn't think we would need it in here. Way to plan ahead. Just get it, I'll try to resuscitate. Amy and Ronnie ran for the yard. They tripped over each other. Ronnie was quicker on her feet and flew out to get the machine. Josephine hadn't woken up. Panting and with sweaty fingers, Norbert attached the sensors to her chest. 1, 2, clear! No effect.
Why the fuck doesn't it work? She's getting power, isn't it?
I'm upping the voltage. 1, 2, clear! Josephine woke up with a spasm.
Ah!
Josephine was breathing again. First incredibly fast, then a little slower.
Water.
Amy rushed to get water. Josephine closed her eyes. Her heart was beating fast.
Look at you two. You went in there to save her, and she could have died because of your bickering.
Norbert and Ronnie looked at Bob, slightly confused.
Doc, you rushed in with no plan and only your silver tongue and a lab coat. What did you think was gonna happen? That was stupid. Ronnie, you gassed your friends and beat up people who were on our side. Shut up. Both of you only want to help Josephine, or so you say. Then help her. Support her. Work together and apologize now.
There was something very commanding in Bob's tone. You're right, I couldn't have saved her alone. And you're right, too. I can't approach every situation with a knockout blow. It's just when there's no time to think, I do what I know. That's still much better than my way of not having a clue what to do. You still handle danger better than I do.
Good. Now in the fights to come, act like you meant those words. If you can't agree, ask us, or better yet, ask Josephine.
You gonna yell at her too, old man?
No, because I already told her that her plan was stupid. Someone else's turn.
Josephine slowly regained her senses. When she did, she was thirsty, then hungry, then in pain. Only once all three were handled did she have the strength to really speak. She did so wrapped in a blanket while Norbert treated her hand.
Firstly, I'm so sorry.
You should be. We could have lost you. What did you find? A memo detailing their super-secret master plan?
Yeah, actually. Not a memo, but a collection of PR strategies, city planning blueprints, and whatnot, and Nephthys does have a plan for this city. You mean more than buying houses and water? They're just the means to an end. The plan doesn't say when, but they're planning to cut the flow of water entirely to the lower city.
How? The contract must state that they provide water anywhere.
All they have to do is keep raising the prices. Everyone will move out eventually rather than die of thirst.
Why? What's the point? So they can build fancier homes?
Half of it's that. The other half... something worse. They're going to drive the people who used to live there to the desert. Take their homes and they become vagrants. And property owners can remove vagrants if they want to.
Oh my god, I've started to sound like you.
Oh god. Exactly. They'll be driven away from society to somewhere that no one owns. But they'll die in the desert. Exactly. Mass murder by gentrification and indifference.
Once again, why on earth?
For every janitor, secretary, and factory worker, there are investors, analysts, lawyers, and upper-class folks who want to live here. They want to replace the poorest people with people who can invest, consume, and bring them more money. People who can afford to live in a fully privatized society. When the lower classes are gone, they can outsource manufacturing abroad to poor people that are someone else's problem. And Francis will have his dream of a clean, wealthy, privatized society.
What about all the low-paying jobs that can't be outsourced? Janitors, nurses, security guards, and such? Someone has to handle those.
They'll leave just enough low-end apartments to fill those jobs. People living there will be paid in Nephthys vouchers, not money. And their right to the apartment will be tied to employment. If they want to switch jobs or demand better wages or get sick, well, they can be replaced. That's slavery. Legally it isn't. They can buy anything they want as long as a company owned by Nephthys sells it.
Is there anything we can do about it?
Luckily, yes.
Damn! This game really said capitalism is the enemy.
Didn't realize company script was going to become a plot point, or weaponized gentrification.
This is fucking great!
This is a really good game.
This is a wonderful game. Oh, you know what the thing is? Like, apparently, like, this came out like a year ago and I heard nothing about it.
Yeah.
I'm so surprised. Like, this seems like the best kind of shit that at least the circles we run in would be into. And yet it somehow slipped under our radar. So thanks again to our patrons for bringing it to our attention, because this game fucking slaps.
Indeed.
Smash that like, comment and subscribe.